let's talk about X factors for the Browns this season because the casual fan might say this team will go as far as Deshaun Watson can take them, or this defense will be as good as Myles Garrett can take them. But if we have learned anything from those two superstars, it's that they can't do it all on their own, right? Deshaun Watson led the NFL in passing, and the Texans won 4 games. Myles Garrett has put together the 2 best seasons of his NFL career in back-to-back years, and the Browns had losing seasons both those years. So I think it goes deeper than just those 2 guys. So if the Browns are going to be successful this year, it can't just be on number 4 and number 95. There are going to have to be other guys who step up. They might not be MVPs, but they might be MIPs. No, not what you got in high school, but I'm talking most important players, right? When we look back at a Super Bowl season for the Cleveland Browns in 2023, people are going to remember the big-time superstars in Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett, but there will be guys who are a little bit beneath the surface that were instrumental to this team's success. And if they are going to be successful, it's going to start with these 5 players, and that leads off with Zadarius Smith, the defensive end that the Browns picked up in a trade with the Vikings pretty much out of the blue. And Zadarius Smith is not just a Robin to Myles Garrett. The guy is his own Batman, right? Zadarius Smith by himself is a number 1 edge rusher. So now Jim Schwartz has 2 number 1s. Most DCs are begging for a number 1, right? That's why defensive ends go so early in the draft. That's why they are paid so much in free agency. And for the Browns to have not 1, but 2 clear-cut number 1 edge rushers on the same team and not even looking at the rest of the defensive line, I say this with full sincerity to opposing offensive coordinators. Good luck. You are going to need it game planning, not just slowing down Myles Garrett, but also Zadarius Smith. You look at his body of work over the last 4 years. I took out 2021 because he only played 1 game. 3 straight seasons of 10 or more sacks. And then in 2018, as last year, if I recall correctly, with the Ravens, 8.5 sacks. But what I love the most is the pressures. I think pressures is the NFL equivalent of like OPS, where batting average is not all what it's made out to be. And the same goes for sacks. Like, it's great if you can take down the quarterback, but if you can pressure the quarterback and force an incompletion, force a bad throw, a loss of a down, that is in sometimes case just as good. And the Browns have 2 amazing edge rushers on the same team, in Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. Over their careers, Myles Garrett, number 1 franchise leader in sacks. If Zadarius Smith and his 54.5 sacks was with the Browns his entire time, he'd be top 5 in the NFL, in Cleveland Browns history for sacks. 7 Pro Bowls combined, and we know Myles Garrett, he is one of the best, if not the best, true edge rusher. But the Browns are in rare company here. You look at the 2022 pressure leaders, and this is what I was talking about a moment ago. Guys that can disrupt plays, right? Not just guys who get to the quarterback once a game, and then every other play, they're not doing a whole lot. Look at the list of all the pressure leaders from last season. There is only 1 team that has 2 players who finished in the top 10 last season. It is your Cleveland Browns, with Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith, who finished 8 and 9. That is a year where Myles Garrett flipped his Porsche over 3 times, and Zadarius Smith finished the second half of the season with a bum knee. And they still finished top 10. To me, it's really simple. It's not just Myles Garrett is the show. Zadarius Smith, and fairly so, draws a lot of attention by himself. These 2 guys lining up opposite of each other on 3rd and 10, I really don't know what the running back's job is supposed to be. Is it go to Myles Garrett's side of the field first or go to Zadarius Smith? Do you keep a tight end in? If you're keeping a tight end in and you have him block and not have him release, all of a sudden the linebacker is freed up to blitz and get after the quarterback as well, because he has no responsibility to cover the tight end because the tight end is staying home. This is going to be a very, very big issue for opposing offenses, trying to game plan how to slow down 2 number 1 edge rushers. So let me know, how many total sacks for Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith combined? If they both get, say, 15, and that's definitely ambitious, that would be 30 sacks. Let me know what your best stab is at the total sacks combined for 95 and 99. Moving on to our second X factor, it is David Njoku, a player that I think has gone under the radar a little bit throughout training camp and preseason. And shame on me for not talking about him more because he has been a stud so far through training camp, and that is over now, and the preseason, right? We saw him have an awesome touchdown grab against the Kansas City Chiefs in the preseason finale, and I think that was just a little sample of what is to come for Njoku, and hopefully, I can't say a breakout year. We are past breakout year for Njoku. The guy was drafted back in 2017, but hopefully a year where he looks like what he's being paid to do, which is top 10 tight end numbers, undoubted. Over the last 4 seasons, Njoku's coming off what I would say was the best year of his career since 2018. 628 yards and 4 touchdowns, 58 grabs. Those aren't eye-popping numbers, but if we go back in time for a little bit, remember that dominant stretch he had last season from weeks 2 through 7? 411 yards, 1 touchdown off 33 grabs. Unfortunately, he had an injury that slowed him down for the second half of the season. But if Njoku stayed healthy, he was on track to be an 800-plus yard receiver and pick up 4 to 5 touchdowns, which is exactly what the Browns need. They don't need him to be Travis Kelce or Rob Gronkowski. What they need Njoku to be is an extra problem for defenses because Nick Chubb in the backfield is a huge headache by himself. But you add Njoku, that's going to add some more wrinkles to this. Now, a common thing that people point to is Deshaun Watson doesn't like throwing to his tight ends. I'm calling cap on that. Deshaun Watson has never had great tight ends to work with. Who knows Ryan Griffin? The guy was the leading tight end for 2 straight seasons in Houston at the start of Watson's career. Darren Fells was the next starting tight end. Jordan Akins was the backup. None of those tight ends ever went over 400 yards. David Njoku last season did that by himself with a bad ankle and spotty quarterback play. Something tells me that if David Njoku gets consistent and above average to elite quarterback play, Watson's going to be a huge beneficiary because Njoku is one of the most physically gifted tight ends in our game, and Njoku's going to be a big beneficiary because he's finally going to get consistent above average elite quarterback play. So when the linebackers have to zero in on Nick Chubb in the backfield and they have to bite on that play action, because if they give Nick Chubb an extra half step, he's going to make them play like the Chargers game 2 seasons ago. All of a sudden, Njoku's just going to slip behind all the linebackers, and he is going to be wide open over the middle of the field. And we know that Deshaun Watson is starting a good connection with 85. We saw just a little bit of that in the preseason finale, and we heard all about it during training camp. So expect more of that this upcoming season. And if there is more of that, it's going to be a problem for opposing defenses. Now, before we get to my other X factors for this season, we are closing in on our next milestone in subscribers, 22,000. 46 subs to go. Let's get there on today's show. If you have not subscribed, consider going ahead and doing so. And in return, we're going to post free daily Browns content. My third X factor is the third-year player out of Notre Dame, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, JOK. This has to be the year for JOK where it all comes together. Unfortunately, he was coming out of Notre Dame and prototyped as being a little undersized to play linebacker, and the injuries somewhat back that up. He has yet to play a full season. Last year, he missed 6 games with a foot injury, but this year is the year. It has to be the year for now number 6. He's got an incredible defensive line. He no longer has CFL defensive tackles who let the offensive line get to the second level like a turnstile. So that's going to free up JOK to come into the backfield and blow up run plays. I still think about that 2021 season when he got into the backfield and completely destroyed Dalvin Cook. I want more of that and more frequently too. So I think linebacker, and I think it's a safe to say statement here, is the weakest position across the Browns roster. Nothing on offense really looks weaker than linebacker. And on defense, it's not the defensive line. It's not the secondary. And that leaves the guys in the middle. But if JOK has a breakout season, that's going to dramatically change things. If Anthony Walker comes back and doesn't play like a top 5 linebacker, but plays like a consistent and good communicator and a great green dot in the middle of the defense, that paired with JOK's sideline-to-sideline abilities is going to be a playmaking havoc that when teams go up against the Browns, they're thinking of Myles Garrett. They're thinking of Zadarius Smith. They're thinking of Denzel Ward. And JOK in the middle is just going to sneak through the cracks, and he is going to make some great plays if everything comes, in a row for him. So who do you think has a better season as we foreshadow the next guy we're going to talk about? JOK or Elijah Moore? Type the jersey number down below for who you think just has a better 2023 season. For me, I think I'm going to go with the next guy on screen, but I'm hopeful that if we get a healthy JOK, it could be number 6. And with that, we move on to Elijah Moore, the big trade piece that Cleveland acquired for a second and third round pick swap with the New York Jets. This is the biggest unknown of the bunch. There is a lot of optimism that Elijah Moore is going to have a breakout year and go over 1,000 yards and develop a chemistry with Deshaun Watson and be a healthy Will Fuller for Watson in Cleveland. But we don't have any statistical evidence to back ourselves on that he can do that. I mean, just look at the first 2 years of his career, 538 yards his rookie season in 11 games, so very impressive, 5 touchdowns. But last year there was a step back, and you can attribute that step back to LaFleur, the play caller, Zach Wilson, bad, horrible, borderline, awful quarterback play, and all those things are fair. But the fact is, we have not seen Elijah Moore go for over 700, 800 yards. So this is one of those moments before we just start crowning Elijah Moore as a 1,000-yard receiver. We do have to actually see it, and not just in training camp and preseason. And to me, that makes him an X factor for this season, right? And this is also Kevin Stefanski's second shot at that quarterback and super-duper speedy wide receiver connection, because he had that with Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr., and it just didn't work out. And you can chalk up a lot of that to Baker Mayfield, but I think you're going to be disappointed if it doesn't work out like we're all hoping for between Deshaun Watson and Elijah Moore, and all of a sudden we go back in time, we go, well, maybe it wasn't all on Baker. Maybe a majority was on Baker, but I think Kevin Stefanski also had some skin in the game there. This is his second chance. This is his redemption. He has a wide receiver who ran a sub 440. Those guys do not grow on trees. But the ones that do grow on trees, well, a lot of them turn out to be like Anthony Schwartz, who in his draft class, the same as Elijah Moore, ran the fastest 40-yard dash. We all learned it's not just about being a track star. So for the Browns to actually have a track star that can catch the football, that right there is a very rare blend. And Kevin Stefanski, you can't screw the pooch this time, right? It didn't work out with Baker and OBJ. It has to work out this time with Deshaun Watson and Elijah Moore. It is up to him to put Moore in good spots to be successful and not have it be an ultimate disaster like it was between 6 and 13. And if it does work out, it's going to be special, because the Browns are going to have an absolute speed demon on the field that's not just a track star, but a guy who's got great hands. He can make contested catches. He can stretch the field. And then you've got old reliable Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones to get you the first down on 3rd and 9, and David Njoku over the middle, and all of that without even including what I would say is a top 3 running back in the NFL right now in Nick Chubb. To wrap up our X Factors for this upcoming season, let's go with Dustin Hopkins. Yeah, I kind of want to talk about the new kicker in town, because kickers, they are a tricky little bitch, but they are important, because Dustin Hopkins, I'm not going to stand here and say the Browns completely fleeced the Chargers and they got a Pro Bowl kicker. No, Hopkins is solid. Just that. He is solid. He is probably the definition of a solid kicker in the NFL, right? He's not going to blow up and have meltdown seasons. His career low field goal percentage in a year is 79. For reference, last year for Cade York was 75%. His career high, never gone above 90. So he's never had a Pro Bowl caliber year where he just kicks the lights out of the stadium, but he's also never been a complete train wreck that causes his team to lose a bunch of games. That's not Dustin Hopkins. He is going to be as vanilla as it gets. When the Browns traded for Dustin Hopkins, I said Cleveland basically put their driver away and took out their 5-iron and just accepted we might not drive the green on a short par 4, but we're not going to go into the woods on a par 3 either. This is Hopkins. When you look at what he did last season, he did miss some time. He was injured. Cameron Dicker took over, and the Chargers have opted to keep with Dicker, the kicker, moving forward. But he was 9 of 10. Pretty good numbers. And when you look at his entire career, field goal percentage, yardage by yardage here, 30 to 39, 93.4. Pretty darn good. I mean, that's not the best in the league, but there are definitely worse kickers in that range. 40 to 49, 81.8. So we'll round up 82% between 40 and 49 yards. Again, he doesn't have some incredible leg, but the guy is accurate. But even for an accurate kicker, 82 is probably a bit on the low side. However, that's what you get when you get a solid average kicker. 50-plus yards, he is right down the middle, 50%. 15 for 30 in his NFL career for over 50 yards. Cade York was supposed to be someone that beyond 50 yards could be like a 70% kicker. And that's what the Browns drafted him in the 4th round. Unfortunately, you are now rolling the dice with a guy who's 50% beyond 50 yards. And so take it better for worse over Cade York. He is going to make a lot of good and short kicks as he should, but he is not going to be someone that gets carried off the field after knocking through a 58-yarder in week 1. Now, when you look at the previous Super Bowl winning kickers, I thought this would be a good point of reference here to go. Kickers are important, and you look at the last 5 Super Bowl winning kickers, Harrison Butker last season is the only outlier. His career or his season field goal percentage was 75%. It helps when you got a guy named Patrick Mahomes. But the Rams, Matt Gay, he had 94% that season. Ryan Suckup for the Bucks, 90%. Butker back in 2019, 90%. Gostkowski back in 2018, 87.5%. So teams that win Super Bowls do it with good kickers. You need kickers to make big kicks. And Dustin Hopkins in his career is an 85% field goal percentage kicker. So for better or for worse, he's not one of those top elite kickers, but maybe the Browns can carve their own path and make their own blueprint for winning the Super Bowl and not have it fall on the shoulders of a kicker and they go for 2 a bunch. I don't really know, but I'm telling you guys, Hopkins is a huge X factor for this season because teams do not get by with just mediocre kicker play that they can rotate every couple of seasons. You look at the best teams in the NFL, they don't change their kicker a whole lot. They find their guy and they stick with him. Unfortunately, that was not Cade York as we all wanted it to be. And I don't think it's going to be Dustin Hopkins for the next 5 or so years. But he was the best case. He was the best answer in a very tough spot for Andrew Berry and the Browns, where all the good kickers are gone now. So you've got to find another team scraps who moved on from their kicker, lost that kicking battle, and you just accept the fact, hey, it's better than Cade York, but it's not going to be a long-term answer. So those are my 5 X factors for 2023. Again, it's easy to say Deshaun Watson or Myles Garrett, but again, those guys have put up great seasons in losing efforts. They need more, and that comes down to those 5 guys. And Hopkins, like I said, I don't think he's a kicker that's going to be carried off on the shoulders after a walk-off 58-yard field goal, but he's also not going to be the guy that we all scream on Twitter about because he missed a 43-yarder. So for better or for worse, that's your kicker. Let's pick a card to wrap up the show. We've got producer Jake Chipper behind the camera today and one of the newer folks here at Chat Sports, Allie Barefoot. Chipper, which card do you want to go with?
I'm going to go Queen of Spades.
Queen of Spades, Allie? 7 of Hearts for Allie, Queen of Spades for Chipper. I'm going to go with the 5 of Diamonds. What did you say? Queen of Diamonds.
No! Ooh!
That is a brutal beat right there. Off the back iron. Gordon Hayward style. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will sign off, and we will see you guys later.